Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day and had a good end to 2024. It's been a busy 10 days here. I had my wife's birthday. My kids are sick. I've been trying to be a good dad and husband. That's why we haven't done many videos. Cool thing coming in. We're going to do today a video of like an update at the end of the year and what I'm excited for about next year. One of those things is my TCG machines just showed up. Really excited about that. That'll be a different video later on, probably tomorrow or the next day. But today I want to sit down and have a conversation about the end of 2024 and looking into 2025, what I think is going to happen with the TCG stuff. Alrighty, everybody. Well, like I said, today we're just going to chat about these games and talk about what happened at the end of 2024. I got a new camera, so hopefully audio sounds good and video sounds good and looks good. So 2024, in my opinion, was, in the last 5 years, the year that Magic the Gathering came back with a vengeance. We're going to talk a lot about Magic and Pokemon owning the card shop life conversation this year, and what that looks like moving forward into 2025. But it's weird because it's always been the case, but we had a little bit of a blip in the radar there where it seemed like some of these other games were going to take a huge stand into the card shop world. And it's not that they haven't, it's not like they've gone away, but Magic and Pokemon really doubled down on their ownership of card game stores in the last year. So first and foremost, I want to start with there. Magic this year has produced some amazing sets, and not even like they solved their play booster, set booster, draft booster thing. They tried to solve that. I'm not sure that that's even really solved yet, but the sets were fun. The game was fun. The mechanics, the energy, other than Murders at Carlisle Manor, the mechanics and the energy within the sets were enjoyable, and it brought Magic back to this place where it's a lot of fun and exciting to play. And that is Magic's biggest selling point, is you can show up to any LGS and hop in a pod of Commander and play the game. Events fire, and if it's fun, then people get excited about the sets and it does well. Now, they did a lot of things this year in 2024, a lot of bans, a lot of reprints, a lot of things that make the internet people unhappy. But from the vast majority of people every day that I interact with in the game store, people are excited and having fun playing Magic. And when people are excited and having fun playing Magic, it takes a lot of wind out of the sails of all the other card games. Not just the wind in the sails, but the wind in the actual sales of card games as well. And that's a lot of what you're seeing, I think, in the market with some of these other games. Whereas Magic continues to make it fun to play, the other games don't have a leg to stand on because the players are involved in Magic. And that's the biggest thing, the biggest question mark for 2025 is, can Magic consistently put out sets that people are excited and are ready to engage with? And I have a little bit of a reservation about that. I don't know how people are going to handle Aether Drift, where we're playing with Magic the Gathering Need for Speed. And I don't know how people... I am excited for the space one, where it's like Magic in space. And I'm excited for that because I like space. It excites me. But I'm not sure how the rest of the Magic people are going to find that. I do know Marvel is probably going to be a huge home run, and that's going to excite a lot of people. But for the most part, the question mark for me is not what do they change with MSRP and how do they change the price of and the number of packs in the play booster. That's not what I'm worried about for Magic. What I'm worried about as a retailer for Magic is, can they continue to make fun mechanics, or do they run out of steam? And one of the things, I just gave you kind of a question mark on some of the themes and mechanics, but one of the things I'm excited about in that realm is that Magic has come out and said that they're going to do less sets this year. I believe it's 5 instead of 7. I think that's the reason. I think that's the number. It's either 5 instead of 7 or 7 instead of 9. Regardless, they're doing less sets, which I think is a good win, because that should mean they have less, they don't have that many misses, and that the sets are actually fun and enjoyable. And I think if they can hold that tension, it's going to be a really, really good year for Magic the Gathering. I'm going to try to go through these games pretty quickly. because I don't want this video to be like an hour. I just want to give you guys my opinions, what happened in 2024, and then moving into 2025, what I'm looking at for all the games that we kind of talk about and carry. For Magic, that is the thing. My strategy for Magic this year, I've said this on videos, I am doubling down on buying singles. I am all in. If you want to sell your collections, hit me up at KitchenTableTCG@gmail.com. The Fizz Bash that you saw at the beginning of this video, the reason we're buying a card sorter is to help buy those collections. The sealed product game it works for a lot of people. For us, it's fine. It's just not as, for me, the risk level is much higher than buying singles and buying collections. And we're just better at singles as a business. I'm just better at it. And so I want to focus in on that. That's kind of our bread and butter, what we're going to be doing. But I do think the sealed product is going to be pretty good this year as well. And that's why we got the Gold Wizard program and all the other stuff going on as a business. So Pokemon, let's move into Pokemon because, man, 2024, wild year for Pokemon. And I don't really even know exactly what to tell you happened. Everybody hated Scarlet and Violet. Nobody liked it. Everybody hated it until the shift happened and they couldn't get it. And this is the Pokemon story that when something is widely available, nobody wants it. But as soon as the availability starts slowing down, all of a sudden, people come out of the woodwork. I mean, I'm getting messages from my cousin's friend wants to buy this box and do you have any of this? I mean, it's crazy. People come out of the woodwork once they can't get the sets. And that's going to be really interesting to see. Does that continue into 2025? Or was this kind of end of the year thing just like a little hype bubble leading up to Christmas? I, for one, think that the excitement that you're seeing for prismatic evolutions, the excitement that you're seeing for some of the stuff like Paldea Evolved, the old Scarlet and Violet stuff that's starting to go out of, maybe not out of print, but starting to fall out of supply. I think that excitement actually stems from one of the very small announcements we got, which was the Team Rocket set and going back to the Gym Heroes type stuff in 2025. Now, we know nothing about this, but it was, in my opinion, it was that announcement and that conversation that jump-started some of the hype for things like Surging Sparks that then sold out really quickly, and then jump-started some of the hype for things like Prismatic Evolutions that everybody wants right now. And I think that set will be the catalyst of turning 2025 either parabolic in terms of the excitement for Pokemon, or if that set misses and it's not the hype that people think it is. Again, we know nothing about it. We haven't seen any cards. All we know is that there was a Team Rocket logo. If that set is disappointing, I think that you could see a lot of fall off from the Pokemon hype. And so for me, that's the set that's the catalyst for the Pokemon world. From a Pokemon TCG, in a TCG store environment, I mean, if you were involved in this in 2023 and 2024, the end of 2024 has been so good to people, stores who were buying Scarlet and Violet, who had plenty of inventory, who have been spending money. Our allocations, I have not missed a set. I have increased the number I was buying from each set, and my allocations will look good then as a result for some of these other things. But with Pokemon, all of a sudden, I'm talking to my reps, they're getting all sorts of new accounts, new people trying to hop into the game again. It feels a lot like it felt in 2020 with the pandemic, and all of a sudden, all these people who don't have stores, all these people who don't actually have, they're just starting with businesses. Frankly, it was me back then, right? Hopping in and trying to get involved, and that's going to put a bottleneck on supply, which is what you're going to see as a purchaser, a buyer of Pokemon product. You're going to see this bottleneck of supply on a lot of people who weren't playing the game in 2023 and 2024. They weren't buying stuff that wasn't good, buying stuff and holding it. And if you weren't doing that, your supply and your allocations are going to be rough. And that's that bottleneck that you're seeing on the market right now in a lot of ways. So as a business, one of the things I always try to do with Pokemon is to have product and make sure that you are stocking up on product even when people don't want it, because that game always comes back where as soon as people don't want something, they all, as soon as it's not available, everybody wants it. Whereas when it's available, nobody wants it. And so one of the things I've found with Pokemon, having a large inventory always helps. But then the biggest thing is treating the customers who were with you consistently right. And making sure you have product for them, making sure you have allocation for them, making sure you treat them right. And then not just dumping and giving everything to the customers who weren't there. If you weren't there buying, Paradox Rift at release, then you're gonna have a harder time getting the hard to get stuff. Whereas those customers who are consistent here in our store, those customers who are always there, I'm gonna make sure that they get the hot stuff and at the right price, because Pokemon is really this clientele thing. Whereas Magic, a lot of people come in and what they want is space to play. They want you to treat them right. They want to be able to buy singles. They want to be able to buy cards and they want product. But for the most part, they want you to treat them right and have an open play space. And they want you to have the singles that they want. That's like the Magic player. For Pokemon, they want to have access to product. They want to be able to have a relationship when they come in. They're just coming in and buying something. That's an important side of that game. So it's really important, I think, to make sure that the people who were buying and were, participating in the Pokemon ecosystem in 2022, when nobody else cared, that you treat those people right and make sure you save some, product and things for them and don't just sell it to anybody who walks through the door. Because when things are hot, if I put out all my prismatic evolutions, one guy's going to walk in that we've never met before. He's going to ask to buy all of it. And so you have to play this kind of tandem game. You hold back some product to make sure that the people who are consistent in your store or consistent in your business, even if you're online, have access to the product. That seems to me to be the Pokemon game. Although I'm still learning. I'm still very much learning. We do have a pretty big Pokemon video. I've been buying a lot of vintage Pokemon for my collection to show off on the channel too. It'll be kind of fun to do that later on in the video. So, all right, that's Pokemon 2025, all about Team Rocket set, in my opinion. We'll see how that works out. I think that Prismatic Evolutions is going to be insanely hard to get a hold of, and the set's too small to be a catalyst for anything. There's going to be a lot of people upset about that. But that Team Rocket set should be a bigger set. I think it's going to be an actual release, if I had to guess. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. All right, let's go to some of the other kind of smaller card games. Like I said, Pokemon and Magic are taking so much of the ecosystem up. But there are card games that are doing really well and are still growing and thriving. Lorcana, I think, is the biggest winner out of the last 2 or 3 years. It is really, really growing. Our Lorcana player base is large, I would say, from a one-on-one standpoint in a card game. Not our Commander Night's probably our biggest night, but from one-on-one card game, Lorcana is probably the biggest card game here at Kitchen Table Cards and Games. We have pretty much a full house on Saturday mornings for our Lorcana League, and that's awesome. And I would say Lorcana is right up there with towing the line of a really good, healthy collector versus player base. Now, there are some things, first chapter, is it out of print? Is it in print? Who knows? But the player base seems to get excited and interested in collecting. And the collector base seems to want to throw some cards on the table with their family and enjoy the game. So it's a really cool dynamic there going on. Lorcana, I think, has one too many releases a year, though. I think it's 4 releases. Yeah, it's every quarter, I think. I think they could dumb that down to just do 3 releases a year, and I think the player base would be a little bit more excited. It just seems like there's not quite enough time to hop into the sets. I know what Magic people are going to be like, there's 18 sets a year, blah, blah, blah. But it just seems like the new releases are coming out a little bit too quick. I'm hearing that from people who sell singles as well, and who crack open a lot of boxes. That just doesn't seem like that dichotomy is working. Like that interest in the sets is sticking when there's a new set every couple months. So I think that's one thing. But all in all, they're doing all the things that I said that I was worried that they wouldn't do. They are connecting into Disney parks. If you go to the Moana 2 movie, you're getting a Lorcana promo card. these things are crazy for a new TCG, and Disney allowing them to do that and Ravensburg doing that is a huge win for Lorcana. I think really sets them up to tackle into this top 4 TCGs. I think they are healthily in the top 4 now. And it'll be really interesting to see how can they stick there. I think things like that allow them to have that competitive market edge, and they're doing really well locally. I'm curious to hear from other game stores how Lorcana's been. We have had an increase in players, but a decrease in sales of boxes, if that makes sense. It seems like a lot of people, as these new releases are coming out, are choosing to just buy some singles rather than cracking open a bunch of boxes, which makes sense if they feel like there's too many releases a year. But very interesting to see that. Again, I think the game's going to do really well and continue to do well as long as they still have that support from Disney and reaching out into those Disney IPs in a major way, like being at the parks, being at the movie theater. That really helps grow the game. And then if you have the player base, and then you also have the kind of kids and the collector base, you have a kind of the best of both worlds from Pokemon and Magic, which gives them a really good, huge advantage. So Lorcana, again, still locally one of our top games, really good, doing really good. The other game that's doing really well for us is One Piece. To Joey's appreciation, Joey has really championed One Piece locally, and One Piece, I think, really stretching the line of players who also collect. That kind of we always talk about on this channel, there's 2 types of people that are both important in the TCG space, and that is players and collectors. And for One Piece, all the players are really collecting, and they want to get the manga card, and they want to bling out their deck, and all the collectors also hopping in and playing, and people who like to rip open packs, still they like the quick, fast-paced element of the game. And it seems like One Piece is again here to stay. It'll be interesting. I don't think One Piece has quite what it takes to overtake like the top 4 spots in TCGs. Simply put, they need to expand their distribution if that's going to happen. Being only at GTS and maybe at one of the other smaller ones, but they're not at the 2 major United States distros. I think it's probably a win for some ways. It's probably a win for stores, but probably stores who have access to it. But it's probably a loss for the game as a whole. So it'll be really interesting to see if they keep that kind of exclusivity into 2025. I think if you are somebody who cares about the secondary market of the old stuff, you probably want them to be toying with another distro to grow the player base. But if you are somebody who relies on selling the new products, I think you probably want them to stick with just where they are. So it's very interesting. But as they put in the sets that have big chases, and a lot of the manga chases are doing really well. Like this most recent set seems to be doing really well. But the sets that only have like one manga chase seem to struggle quite a bit more. But we have people come in who buy full cases. The spend on One Piece per customer is probably higher than the spend for, I would guess any other game, but the number of players, the number of collectors is definitely lower. So it's very interesting to see. But yeah, One Piece has done pretty well for us, even online. We don't compete with like the quick pre-order thing. That's not something that I do. We kind of put boxes up after release and the kind of the leftover stuff from the local store. But it's still interesting to see how much people come in to buy product as long as we are correctly priced. And the difference in sales, I mean, we're just from Shopify and from the shop app and that kind of stuff, getting a lot of traction just from people not having the width of different stores to buy from because of the exclusivity to one distribution center. So it's very interesting to see that. So all in all, game seems to be doing really well. I do think that they will have scaling issues if they don't change up their distribution system, which is also incredibly hard to figure out. And so 2025 for One Piece, I think probably looks pretty flat unless there's a major shift like that I don't anticipate will happen. All right, Sorcery. All right, Sorcery has a new set. They just announced Gothic, which is really cool. Everyone's going to talk about the same thing every single time they talk about Sorcery. Is one set a year going to work, or is one set a year not going to work? That is the biggest question mark for Sorcery. But let's look at the track record. Alpha, beta, well received, exciting. Had some print issues, the quality changes. People make a bigger deal about that on the internet. My best friend George makes a bigger deal about that on the internet than it actually is. The people who are locally playing, we got a play group of like probably 6 to 8 people, and they don't care about the print change. Nobody cares about that. The people who care about that are the hypercritical online people who don't make up the rest of the kind of base. I will say though that a lot of that hypercritical online base is where a lot of the money for Sorcery does come from, which is a weird dynamic that Sorcery, that most indie TCGs have as well. Arthurian Legends though came out, print quality seems to be fine. There wasn't any major clumping or anything like that. I think Arthurian Legends, the pull rates of the uniques, like the true unique foils, are incredibly hard, which adds a lot of collectability. The singles seem pretty well priced. You can build a deck pretty efficiently and able to get involved in the game. I think the price point of the decks is in a really good spot. I think the biggest question always is going to be with Sorcery is, can they maintain excitement? Can they maintain hype throughout the year? I said on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, I really wish they would come out and just announce the next set so that people could be excited about that. They did that. They announced the next set right into the turning point from 2024 to 2025. We now know the next set is Gothic, and that is really, really exciting. And I hope they continue to give us some spoilers, some feelers, some things that excite the community moving forward. As the company grows and they add people, I hope that they continue to find creative ways to keep that hype cycle in this. I know they don't want like a major hype cycle, and that's great. I understand that. But keep that in the 2 weeks before release, and that's good. But I hope they can spell out some different connections, and I hope we get to see 6 months from release a card that or a deck that we get to play with and show the mechanics for people to get excited about down the line. I hope that they are creative in the way that they do the one set a year that doesn't just leave people not engaging with the game for 7 months. That is the biggest risk. That's always going to be the biggest risk, and that is always going to be the biggest frustration from a local game store point of view. But this also provides a place for local game stores to not have to constantly keep up with things. And that is a win. When there are this many games, we're going to talk about 5 of them. I think Sorcery will be the last game. Yeah, we're going to talk about 5 of them. Sorcery is going to be the last game that we talk about in this video. I have to keep up with so many different releases, even with just those 5 games, that if Sorcery adds a bunch of releases, I'm going to care because I'm me and I love Sorcery. I would say Sorcery is my favorite game to play. I love playing Sorcery. It's my favorite game to play. So I'm going to keep up with it, but the average game store isn't able to keep up with another 4 or 5 release a year game. They're just not able to do it. There's too many games on the market. There's too many One Piece releases and Lorcana releases and Magic releases and Pokemon releases. So there is an innate advantage to being a game that has one set a year that if I like as a store, I can add to my arsenal of games, but I don't have to be committing thousands of dollars each month in sets that I don't know how are going to perform. I don't have to keep engaging with it in a meaningful, big way. I can set it to say, hey, once a year, I'm going to focus on this and it's going to be great and I love it, but it doesn't have to be this constant thing in my brain all the time. And I think that's going to work for a lot of stores. I do think it will limit the number of stores that means that it will get involved in, if they don't do some other marketing and some other stuff that I hope they do. But if it works for the company and if it works for them and they are able to continue to produce one set a year, I do think for the stores that get involved and hop in, it's going to be a really cool thing. And so as long as it works for the company and they're able to stay afloat and to grow and to continue to add employees and continue to provide fun mechanics and great artwork and great sets, if it works for the company and they can still pay Simon and Co., then that's great. And if that works for the players who are going to stay engaged, and if they can keep a way of, engaging the players every couple months in different spoilers and things, then that works. I do think it works for game stores as long as your business isn't built on sorcery, you'll be fine. You can just add this as a game, and I think that's a really big win. You also don't have the losses that comes with when a set fails, like Star Wars Unlimited, which we're not even really going to talk about in this video. Star Wars Unlimited had a set that kind of tanked. It wasn't fun. It didn't do anything, and it took the wind out of the sails because there's so many releases, they can't make the sets all the best. They can't make the artwork all great. As long as a set doesn't fail for sorcery, it's going to be great. As long as they're able to put the resources and the time and the energy into making it really good, once a year, it should be fine. So this year, that Gothic set, man, I cannot wait to see what it's going to be about. I haven't even had a chance to really dive into, I know they just put out like one spoiler type thing. I didn't even have a chance because of holidays and my kids are sick and my wife's birthday and all that stuff. But man, if they can do this one set a year thing and do it right, I do think there's a really big win for game stores. I do think there's a big win for players if they do enjoy the game. And man, that grid-based system is super fun to be able to move your stuff around. The people who play sorcery, they fall so in love with the depth of the game and how every game is different. And so that depth is really cool to see. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the 5 games that we kind of talk about on the channel. Sorry there hasn't been videos for a while. I've been so busy. I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent leading into the new year. We're going to see a bunch of collection buys. We've also been working on a really big collection buy that I've been doing at night from my house. So you won't even see any of it. But hopefully you have yourself a great day and a happy new year. I hope you're excited about it as I am. Remember to be kind to the people around you, and we'll see you again next video.